Imagine for a moment that 2 or 3 people gather, not just in a room, but in thought and intention, quietly focusing on what is true, good, and eternal. There is a subtle yet profound shift that occurs, not because of the chairs in the room, not because of the walls or the roof, but because consciousness itself is aligning with spirit. What Jesus pointed to is far more than a casual gathering. It is an invitation to recognize the power of collective awareness. When 2 or 3 come together in faith, they create a space where the ordinary boundaries of human limitation begin to dissolve. This is the secret that is so often overlooked. Divine presence does not require thousands. It does not require ceremony or ritual. It only requires a heart willing to be attuned to the invisible, the eternal. In such moments, the infinite works through the finite, and insight, peace, or healing can arise as naturally as sunlight breaking through clouds. It is not the number that counts, but the quality of consciousness that is present. Even a simple gathering, if touched by faith, becomes a channel for something greater than the sum of its parts. When understanding dawns on this truth, it changes everything about how we approach prayer, meetings, or shared spiritual effort. We begin to see that when hearts are aligned, something unseen is at work, something that cannot be measured by human standards, yet its effects are unmistakable. Faith, therefore, is not passive. It is an active recognition of the divine presence. It is knowing that when attention, intention, and awareness converge, even in a small group, the invisible spirit is already moving. The gathering becomes a sacred conduit, a place where miracles are not forced, but naturally unfold. What seems simple, 2 or 3 coming together, reveals the profound. That spirit thrives not in quantity, but in the conscious harmony of willing hearts. And so, when we truly understand why Jesus said, "Where 2 or 3 are gathered," we recognize the profound lesson. Our collective awareness, our shared faith, our aligned intention, all become vessels for the infinite. It is a reminder that divine presence is not distant or abstract. It is immediately accessible, waiting to be invited into the smallest circle of sincere hearts. Every small gathering, every conscious moment shared with others in faith, has the potential to touch eternity. When Jesus spoke of, "Where 2 or 3 are gathered," he was pointing to something far deeper than a simple meeting of people. He was highlighting the extraordinary power that comes into play when minds, hearts, and spirits are aligned in a single awareness of truth. Spiritual alignment is not about external conformity or shared opinions. It is about the internal resonance of consciousness tuned to a higher, divine reality. When 2 or 3 individuals come together with genuine openness, faith, and a desire to connect with what is true and eternal, there emerges a subtle, almost imperceptible energy that flows between them. This energy is not human in origin. It arises naturally when multiple consciousnesses focus on the same divine presence or principle. It is as if the invisible threads of spirit stretch across each person, weaving them together into a single, harmonious field. This alignment allows individuals to transcend ordinary limitations of thought and perception. Normally, the mind is distracted by countless concerns, judgments, and personal agendas, which create barriers to understanding and spiritual insight. But when people gather in genuine alignment, these distractions diminish. The attention is no longer scattered, it is concentrated on the invisible, eternal truth that exists beyond appearances. This focused attention opens a channel through which divine intelligence can flow, allowing insights, solutions, or a sense of peace to arise effortlessly. It is the convergence of intention and awareness that creates a field of spiritual power, a field in which miracles, understanding, and transformation can occur naturally. Furthermore, this alignment does not require perfection. It is not necessary for everyone to think alike or to have mastered spiritual truths. What matters is the willingness to open one's heart to the invisible presence and to remain in conscious attunement with it. When 2 or 3 hearts are united in this way, their combined openness amplifies the presence of spirit. It is similar to tuning multiple musical instruments to the same note. Each contributes to the resonance, and the sound produced is far richer than that of a single instrument. Likewise, the collective spiritual alignment of even a small group creates a power far greater than the sum of its parts. In practical terms, this means that gatherings, prayers, or meetings are most effective when participants are consciously aligned in purpose, intention, and faith. The power is not in the number of people or the location, but in the shared awareness and the unified focus on the divine presence. When this alignment occurs, the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and the unseen operates through the seen. This is the hidden truth behind Jesus' words. Even the simplest gathering, when spiritually aligned, becomes a conduit for divine intelligence and transformative power, proving that the essence of spiritual practice lies not in external form, but in inner unity. When Jesus said, "Where 2 or 3 are gathered," he was emphasizing something profound about spiritual reality. It is not the quantity of people that creates power, but the quality of their presence. Too often, we assume that spiritual effectiveness is tied to numbers, believing that a large gathering automatically produces greater results. Yet the truth he revealed is that even a small group, if fully present in consciousness, can access the divine in ways far beyond what appearances suggest. Presence here is not merely physical, it is the alignment of heart, mind, and spirit with the eternal truth. It is an inward state of being, a conscious attunement to the unseen, which transcends the limitations of time, space, and circumstance. When 2 or 3 individuals gather with genuine attentiveness and openness, something remarkable happens. The atmosphere itself becomes charged with a subtle, invisible energy. This energy is created not by human effort but by the conscious recognition of a higher reality. Each person contributes a unique vibration, and when these vibrations resonate together in harmony, they amplify the divine presence. This is why even the smallest gathering can manifest profound spiritual outcomes, such as insight, healing, peace, or clarity. The numbers do not multiply the effect. The quality of awareness multiplies it. A single heart fully attuned to spirit can have far more influence than 1,000 distracted individuals, because presence carries the essence of power. Presence over numbers also highlights the importance of sincerity and intent. If a large group gathers with divided attention, distractions, or personal agendas, the spiritual potential of the gathering is diminished. The divine works through focused consciousness, and when attention is scattered, the invisible force cannot flow freely. Conversely, when just 2 or 3 hearts are united in awareness of what is true and eternal, the invisible energy flows effortlessly, unrestricted by human limitations. This principle reminds us that spiritual effectiveness is not measured externally but internally, by the depth of engagement with the eternal reality that underlies all appearances. This understanding also transforms the way we approach prayer, meditation, and communal gatherings. We begin to see that it is not the size of the room, the number of participants, or the outward form of ritual that matters. What matters is the conscious presence of those gathered, the quality of their attention, and their willingness to open themselves to the infinite. When people come together in this way, miracles and insight occur naturally, because the invisible power of spirit responds to focused, unified presence. The small, intimate gathering becomes a living demonstration of the eternal truth. Divine power is always available, not dependent on quantity, but fully activated by conscious, aligned presence. Faith is the invisible force that makes the promise of Jesus' words real in human experience. When he said, "Where 2 or 3 are gathered," he was pointing not to a ritual, a tradition, or a physical assembly, but to the living reality that faith unlocks the door to divine presence. Faith is the inner recognition that the unseen is as real, or even more real than the seen. It is the quiet yet profound knowing that spirit is already present, working and responding even before anything is visibly manifested. Without this inner trust, gatherings, prayers, or attempts to seek divine guidance remain ordinary and limited, because the human mind tends to measure power by what it can perceive, count, or control. Faith bypasses that limitation and creates a direct connection with the eternal. Faith operates as an invisible bridge between human consciousness and the infinite reality of spirit. When 2 or 3 people gather with faith, their inner conviction shapes the atmosphere of the meeting. It is not mere hope or wishful thinking, but a deep, living certainty that divine presence is already among them. This certainty transforms the ordinary space into a sanctuary of possibility, where insights, healing, or guidance emerge naturally. Even in a small gathering, faith acts as a magnet for divine action, aligning the finite awareness of human minds with the infinite potential of spirit. Without this alignment, the gathering may remain a simple social or intellectual interaction, lacking the subtle power that Jesus described. Faith also has a dynamic quality. It grows stronger in collective awareness. When 2 or 3 individuals come together with genuine belief in the presence and action of spirit, their faith is reinforced and magnified. Each person's inner trust contributes to a shared field of certainty that is far more potent than any individual effort. This is why Jesus emphasized small gatherings, because the purity of focus, the simplicity of belief, and the absence of distraction allow faith to operate unhindered. A large crowd without true faith cannot replicate this effect, because scattered attention, doubt, and expectation dilute the energy of belief. The spiritual principle is clear: faith is the key that opens the door, and the alignment of multiple hearts in faith unlocks the full potential of divine presence. Understanding faith in this context changes everything about how we approach spiritual life. It teaches that the power of a gathering is not in numbers, location, or outward form, but in the depth of inner conviction. Faith is not a passive state, it is an active recognition that the unseen is present and working, independent of human control. It transforms ordinary moments into extraordinary experiences and allows the invisible to manifest in tangible ways. When 2 or 3 gather with faith, miracles are not forced, they simply flow naturally, because faith has prepared the channel for the infinite to express itself. When Jesus said, "Where 2 or 3 are gathered," he was revealing a profound spiritual principle, that the infinite is always present within the finite, and that even the smallest gathering of sincere hearts can become a vessel for divine power. The finite refers to our limited human circumstances, our bodies, our minds, our small circle of people, or the physical spaces we occupy. On the surface, these limitations seem to define what is possible. Yet the infinite is not bound by numbers, space, or time. It is the unseen reality of spirit, the eternal presence that is already here, already complete, and always accessible. When two or three gather with awareness and openness to this reality, the infinite expresses itself through the finite. This is the mystery behind Jesus' teaching, a reminder that spirit does not wait for vast numbers, elaborate rituals, or perfect conditions. It operates wherever hearts are willing to align with it. The infinite within the finite is most evident in the way ideas, understanding, and healing emerge in small gatherings. When individuals come together in faith and unity, something greater than themselves begins to work through them. Solutions appear that no single mind could produce, insights arise that seem to come from beyond personal experience, and a sense of peace or guidance fills the space without any visible effort. This is the invisible power of the infinite expressing through the finite. The physical setting, the size of the group, and even the personalities involved become secondary to the presence of spirit moving unhindered. What matters is the consciousness of those gathered, their openness, faith, and alignment with the eternal reality. This principle also teaches us that limitation is often an illusion. Human thinking tends to measure possibility by what we can see or control, but the infinite does not operate by human rules. When two or three align with divine consciousness, the ordinary transforms into extraordinary. A small prayer meeting, a simple conversation focused on truth, or even a quiet moment of shared awareness can become the conduit for divine activity, because the infinite is not restricted by human boundaries. It uses the finite as its vehicle, demonstrating that the power of spirit is not dependent on circumstances but on the inner readiness of those who participate. Understanding the infinite within the finite changes how we approach spiritual life. It shifts our focus from what we lack to what is already present, from counting numbers to cultivating awareness, and from relying on external conditions to trusting the inner presence that always exists. This awareness allows even the simplest gathering to become a sacred space, a place where miracles, understanding and transformation naturally flow. The infinite works quietly, yet powerfully, through hearts that are open, minds that are attentive, and spirits that are united in faith. Unity of consciousness is one of the most profound truths embedded in Jesus' words, where two or three are gathered. It is the understanding that when hearts and minds align in awareness of the divine, a shared field of spiritual energy is created that transcends individuality. This unity is not simply agreement in opinion or conformity of thought. It is a deep resonance of inner awareness, a harmonizing of intentions and attention toward what is eternal and true. When two or three people focus their consciousness in this way, something remarkable happens. The invisible presence of spirit is naturally amplified, flowing freely through all who are present. This principle demonstrates that the power of any gathering is less about numbers or external rituals and far more about the alignment of consciousness. When people gather in unity of consciousness, ordinary limitations, doubt, fear, confusion, or conflict begin to fade. The collective focus creates an atmosphere in which divine presence can operate without obstruction. Each person contributes to this shared field, not through effort or force, but simply through their willingness to attune to spirit. The alignment of thought and intention acts as a magnet for higher understanding, inspiration, and guidance. It is in this unified awareness that healing occurs, insights emerge, and a sense of peace pervades, not because of human skill, but because consciousness itself has become a conduit for the infinite. This unity also highlights a spiritual paradox. While each individual is finite, limited, and unique, their collective consciousness has the capacity to touch the infinite. When two or three hearts gather in sincere alignment, the invisible force of spirit operates through them in a way that no single individual could achieve alone. The gathering becomes more than the sum of its parts, not because of external numbers, but because consciousness itself is expanded through shared faith and awareness. This is why Jesus emphasized even the smallest gatherings. It is the quality of conscious unity, not quantity, that allows the infinite to manifest. Unity of consciousness transforms gatherings into sacred spaces. It teaches that divine presence is accessible whenever minds and hearts are focused in harmony with eternal truth. The practical implication is profound. Any meeting, any prayer circle, or any moment of sincere shared awareness can become a channel for divine expression if the participants are consciously aligned. The invisible power of spirit responds directly to the coherence of thought, the purity of intention, and the shared faith of those present. It is a reminder that spiritual power does not depend on numbers, authority, or ritual. It depends entirely on the unified consciousness of those who gather. Recognizing the importance of unity of consciousness changes how we approach spiritual life. We begin to value presence over quantity, alignment over superficial agreement, and awareness over appearances. We see that miracles, guidance, and healing are natural outcomes of hearts and minds attuned to the same eternal truth. When unity of consciousness exists, even the smallest gathering becomes a living demonstration of divine presence, proving that spirit moves most powerfully not through force, but through harmonious alignment of willing human hearts. Understanding the practical spiritual implications of Jesus' statement, "Where two or three are gathered," is transformative for how we live, relate, and practice our faith. The principle is clear. The power of divine presence is not reserved for grand events, large congregations, or elaborate rituals. It is available in the simplest, most intimate gatherings where hearts and minds align in awareness of what is eternal. The practical implication of this understanding is that spiritual life is no longer about external form, obligation, or ceremony. It is about conscious alignment, focused intention, and shared awareness. Every meeting, prayer circle, discussion, or even quiet moment with another can become a channel for the infinite if those involved approach it with sincerity, faith, and attentiveness. This teaching shifts the focus from quantity to quality. Many people have been conditioned to believe that spiritual power is measured by numbers, audience, or outward display. Yet when we truly grasp the principle behind Jesus' words, we begin to see that a small gathering of hearts aligned in consciousness carries more spiritual potency than a vast crowd divided in attention and distracted in purpose. Even two people, sincerely seeking the truth together, can activate the same invisible power that moves through the largest assemblies, because spirit responds to unity of intention, faith, and awareness, not to human metrics. In practical terms, this understanding changes the way we approach prayer, meditation, and spiritual meetings. Instead of asking, "How many people are present?" or "Are we doing this correctly according to tradition?" the question becomes, "Are our hearts and minds truly aligned with the eternal reality?" The focus shifts from external form to inner presence. Every act, whether a quiet prayer with a friend, a small group discussion, or a family gathering with conscious awareness, can be infused with divine power. This awareness transforms everyday life into a field of spiritual possibility, where even ordinary circumstances become opportunities for insight, guidance, and transformation. Another practical implication is that responsibility for spiritual power no longer lies outside ourselves. We begin to see that the presence of spirit is always accessible, and that we are invited to cultivate it through conscious awareness, faith, and alignment. This teaching encourages intentionality in all interactions, reminding us that wherever two or three align in consciousness, miracles, understanding, or healing can naturally emerge. It empowers us to see life itself as sacred, demonstrating that the conditions for divine manifestation exist whenever hearts are open and minds are attuned. Ultimately, this understanding encourages a life of conscious engagement rather than passive participation. It invites us to recognize that spiritual practice is not confined to formal settings, but is expressed through intentional alignment, shared awareness, and faith-filled presence in all circumstances. Every small gathering, every sincere interaction, becomes an opportunity to experience and express the infinite within the finite. Through this practical realization, Jesus' teaching reveals that spiritual power is always available, flowing naturally wherever conscious hearts unite in awareness of truth and divine presence. When we reflect deeply on what Jesus meant by saying, "Where two or three are gathered," a profound truth emerges. The power of divine presence is not measured by numbers, rituals, or external appearances, but by the alignment of consciousness, the unity of hearts, and the faith that resides within those gathered. Every principle we have explored, from the power of spiritual alignment to the practical implications of conscious gathering, points to the same essential reality: spirit is always present, always accessible, and always ready to express through willing hearts. It is not something we create or manufacture with human effort, but something we open ourselves to, invite into our gatherings, and allow to operate through faith, harmony, and awareness. The smallest gathering, approached with sincerity and intention, can become a sacred space where the infinite flows naturally through the finite. Understanding this transforms not only the way we approach formal spiritual practices, but the way we live each day. We begin to see that life itself is a series of opportunities for alignment, for unity of consciousness, and for conscious participation in the divine. Even the simplest interactions, two friends sharing a prayer, a family quietly focusing on love and understanding, or a small group contemplating truth, can become vessels for the unseen power of spirit. The emphasis shifts from what we can control outwardly to what we can cultivate inwardly: presence, faith, attentiveness, and shared awareness. These are the conditions that allow miracles, insight, healing, and transformation to unfold naturally. Faith emerges as the key that unlocks this reality. It is faith that recognizes the unseen, that trusts in the presence of spirit, and that allows the infinite to operate through the finite. Without faith, gatherings remain ordinary. With faith, they become extraordinary. It is not the size of the group or the circumstance that matters, but the quality of consciousness present. When hearts and minds are truly aligned, the invisible works effortlessly through the visible, and life itself becomes a testament to the power of divine presence. This teaching also reminds us that spiritual practice is not confined to grand settings or large audiences. It is deeply practical. It is expressed through intention, attentiveness, and harmony wherever two or three hearts unite in awareness of the eternal. The small becomes great, the ordinary becomes sacred, and the invisible becomes evident. By understanding and embracing this principle, we are invited to live in a state of openness, conscious alignment, and shared faith, knowing that every meeting, every moment of sincere awareness, and every act of conscious unity carries within it the potential to express the infinite. In the end, the essence of Jesus' teaching is simple yet revolutionary. The presence of God is not distant, abstract, or dependent on external form. It is always here, waiting to be invited into the smallest circle of hearts that are aligned in faith and consciousness. When two or three gather with true awareness, they do not just meet, they become a living demonstration of divine presence. Understanding this allows us to experience life itself as sacred, to see spiritual power operating naturally through the finite, and to recognize that no gathering is ever too small for the infinite to flow. In every sincere union of hearts, miracles, insight, and divine presence are already at work, quietly, powerfully, and inevitably.